Well, assalamu alaikum everyone. We're going to start the stream in a while. I don't think there's anyone here yet, but it doesn't matter. We're going to have to start eventually. Let me just open the stream. Let's see if the stream is live. Until then, I guess we'll just start. So, first question that we have here is there are 5 temperatures in degrees Celsius. We need to order them starting with the lowest one. Well, this is pretty self-explanatory. Question 1, we start with A. So, the lowest one of these is obviously the one that has the greatest value in negative, right? So, the ones with the minus sign are minus 6 and minus 2. Obviously, minus 6 will be the lowest because it's the greatest negative one, right? So, we have minus 6 here and next we have minus 2. Now, going to the words the positive, we have something in between. We have 0, then we have 1, and 4. Well, that's the order. Now let's move on to question number 2. In question number 2, we see that we have to write these numbers in order of size. Now the simplest thing to do here is first convert them all into one standard where they can be compared easily. 0.45 is already in decimals, so we don't need to convert this into anything. 3 upon 8, however, can be converted. So let's just divide 3 by 8, 0. And then we can do 8 4s are 32. Actually, 8 3s are 24. 6, that comes to a 0. Then we have 8 7s are 56 and 4 and then 0 again and 0.375. So we have 0.45, 0.375, and the last number that they've given us is, as you can see, 40%. So what is 40%? Well, 40% percent basically means per 100, right? So it becomes 40 upon 100 and that is equal to 0.4. So we have these three numbers that we need to compare. Well, obviously you can see that the smallest one over here is the one that starts with the 3. So 0.375 would be our first value. The next one would be either 0.45 or 0.4. Well, in 0.45 we have 5 in front of 4, while in 0.4 we just have 0. So obviously 0.4 will be smaller than 0.45. And then finally we have 0.45 here. Now let's write them in their original form. 0.375 was originally 3 upon 8, 0.4 was 40%, and 0.45 was just 0.45. So this is the answer to part B. Take a good look at that. Now we'll move on to question 2. Question 2a basically says that we're given the shape, as you can see on the screen, and we need to shade one more small square so the diagram has exactly one line of symmetry, right? So a line of symmetry is any line along which if you cut, then it will form equal portions that can be reflected onto each other. So let's just make a replica of our diagram over here. Let me bring the camera a bit closer. So let's shade the squares that are given in the diagram itself. They said that we need to shade one square. If we cut the diagram along like so, then it will not work because we need one over here to be able to reflect it like that and one over here. But the most common solution in these sort of questions is a diagonal. So think diagonally. If I think about this sort of diagonal, then you can see that 3 of the squares are being cut so that their own shapes basically form their own reflection. So you don't need any additional squares in that. The only squares which is reflection is not being managed is this one, right? So in order to be able to reflect that, we can shade this shape over here. So now we have a perfect reflection along this line. So that's the answer. The next question we have is to be able to shade one more small square so that the new diagram has a rotational symmetry of order 2. Well, what does that mean? That means that when we rotate the diagram along 360 degrees, then it must fall back to its original position 2 times. So the diagram has already been given to us with these shaded squares, and we need to shade one more. So if we'll be rotating this at 90 degrees, then these two squares will come along here. And if we rotate it a further 90 degrees, then these will come along here. As you can see, one of these squares is already shaded, so we need to shade this one so that it becomes a perfect copy of that. So when it rotates, the first two squares will come here, and the second two will come here. When it rotates another time, they'll come here, and this will come here. So as you can see, it will fall back to its original position, and that's why it will have order 2. Let's move on to the next question. This is a question that has statistics in it. So let's just see. It says that Olga writes a list of 5 numbers. The median of those numbers is 12, right? So let's just write down all the data that we have. The median is 12, the mode is 11, the range is 10, and the sum of these numbers is 75. Now, there are 5 numbers, so let's just make 5 gaps over here. The first thing that we know is that if we write these numbers in ascending order, the middle number will be 12. And this we know because median refers to the middle number when they're arranged in ascending order. So the middle number we can already write here is 12. The next thing that they mention is that the mode is 11. That means that the mode must be mentioned more than 1 times to be the most frequent value. And since it's in ascending order, then these are the only 2 spaces for 11. So 11 must come at least 2 times, so let's just fill out these areas with 11. So now we've figured out a good amount of numbers. They're also telling us that the range is 10. If the range is 10, that means that the difference between the greatest number and the smallest number is 10. So if the smallest number is 11, the greatest number would be 11 plus 10, so 21. And now you can check that 21 minus 11 and the range is indeed 10. The last thing that we have is that the sum would be 75. If the sum is 75, then that means when we add up all these numbers, it will give us 75. So let's just add the numbers that we have now, and let's call this x and find the last number. So 11 plus 11 becomes 21. 21 plus 11, 12. I'm just using the calculator to speed this up right now, even though it's paper 1. We have 55 plus x is equals to 75. That means that automatically x is equals to 20, and now we have all our 5 numbers. So the 5 numbers that we have are 11, 11, 12, 20, and 21. The next question that we have is a pretty easy one. They're asking us to convert kilograms to grams. So let's just do that. Converting kilograms to grams basically means converting from a larger unit to a smaller unit. And 1 kilogram has 1000 grams. So we'll basically multiply the number that we have over here with 1000, so it becomes 4000 grams. The next thing we have is to convert 250 centimeter cube to liters. So the important thing to know over here is that 1 centimeter cube is equal to 1 milliliter. That must mean 1000 centimeter cube is equals to 1000 milliliter, which is also known as 1 liter. So if we have to work 250 centimeter cube into a liter, then we divide it by 1000. So let's do that because we're converting from a smaller unit to a larger one. So we divide. So this becomes 0.25. And that is the number of centiliters that are contained within 250 centimeter cube. The next question that we have, it says that all the dimensions, someone just wrote something. Okay, let me see. I guess you should just go for concept first, then to past papers. That's actually quite right. I think we will do that definitely in the near future. I hope you're still watching and hearing this. We will do a playlist of all the topics soon. I'm just doing past papers because I think that it would benefit a lot of people who are in my grade right now. But yeah, that's good advice. I'll definitely think about that. So the next question we have is that all dimensions are given in centimeters. We are given a parallelogram and we need to find its perimeter. So the perimeter of a parallelogram is pretty simple if you realize the fact that the opposite sides of the parallelogram are actually equal. So with a parallelogram like this, my words are tripping over each other, this would also be 11 and this would also be 6, right? So in order to find the perimeter of the parallelogram, we would just need to add up all the sides because the perimeter refers to the length of a certain shape considering its outer sides, right? 6 plus 6 plus 11 plus 11. So that is equal to 12 plus 22, and that would be 24, I believe. Let me just check. My basic math is just 34. Yes, 34. So now let's move on. The next question we have is that we're given a trapezium and we need to find the value of y, where y is one of the parallel sides of that trapezium. So the thing with the trapezium is that its area can be easily found out by either breaking the trapezium into multiple shapes, or there's a formula too. The formula for the area of a trapezium is 1 upon 2 b1 plus b2, where b1 and b2 are its parallel sides, multiplied by h, where h is its perpendicular height. So let's just find it out using this. 1 upon 2 b1 is obviously 13, which is one of the parallel sides, and the other parallel side is y, which we do not know as of yet. And the height that we have here is 4. And the area that they've given us is 36. So using this formula, let's just find out the height of the base of that trapezium, right? So 2 multiplied by 2 on both sides, so we get 13 plus y is equals to 36 times 2 divided by 4. Just taking this all over there. This becomes 4 1 4, 4 9 is 36, and that's 18. So 13 plus y is equals to 18. And 18, we can just subtract 13 from both sides to get 5. So basically the other base or the other side of that trapezium is 5. Okay, let's move on now. Okay, the next question that we have is one of a basic prime number series. So we're given two blanks. One of these has 3 in them, already given out for us, and they're saying to complete the given missing card to give a two-digit number that is not a prime number. Now the thing with 3 is that a lot of 3-digit numbers that end with 3 are prime numbers. So in order to remove that doubt from being present there, what we can do is basically just make this into a number that's divisible by 3. In this way, it cannot be a prime number. And for a number to be divisible by 3, its numbers would have add up to something that is divisible by 3. Or simply you can just place any factor of 3 over here. 33 would be divisible by 3, 63 would be divisible by 3, 93 would be divisible by 3, and these are all not prime numbers. So all of these would be acceptable answers. The next question we're given is that my says when I add two multiples of 3, the answer is always a multiple of 6. Let's see if this question is correct. Well, a simple example over here, you can give any example, but this they've already told us that my is wrong, right? So we need to find an example that just supports this, right? So another example would be 3 and 12, which are both multiples of 3, and they add to give us 15. And 15 is not a multiple of 6. So this basically proves that two multiples of 3 will not always give a multiple of 6. So this is an example, and we just need to give one clear example to prove that she is wrong. The next question we have is one of basic fraction division. 2 upon 7 divided by 1 upon 3. So when we divide two fractions, what we need to do basically is to reciprocal the other one, and 2 upon 7, we can change this sign to a multiplication sign, and we reciprocal this fraction. So it becomes 2 upon 7 multiplied by 3. Now this becomes 6 upon 7. So that is the clear answer. The next question is one of fraction addition. 5 upon 6 plus 3 upon 4. Now the same to give us the answer as a mixed number. So let's just do that. In order to add fractions, we need to get them have a common denominator, or an LCM, what we call it sometimes. So we multiply both fractions with the denominator on that one. So the numerator and denominator both multiplied by the same thing. 5 4s is 20 and 6 3s are 18. And then denominator we have 24 on both ends. So this becomes 38 upon 24. And now we can evaluate this into a mixed number. 24 1s are 24, and then we have a remainder of 14 upon 24, which can also be changed into one whole, 7 upon 12. So this is the answer. Okay, now this is a basic time question. So let's just see what it says. It says that a train leaves a train station at 7:43 and it reaches another train station at 10:27. Well, the simpler thing that I like to do when I'm solving these sort of questions is to round it up into some sort of value that can be manipulated easily. Well, first, what is the time taken for it to go from 7:43 to 8 o'clock? Well, the time taken is obviously 17 minutes. The next question is how much time does it take to go from 8 to 10:27? Now this is pretty self-explanatory. It's obviously 2 hours and 27 minutes. Now we just add both of these together, and that becomes 2 hours and 44 minutes. That is our answer. The next question that we have is, let's just turn this over so that we have more space over here. A bus leaves the bus station at 6:25. It reaches the airport at 07:05. These are the times, and they've also given a distance, that the distance from the bus station to the airport is 24 kilometers. Now they're asking us to find the average speed. To find the average speed, we know that average speed basically equals to total distance upon total time. They've already given us the distance, so let's find the time in hours. So In order to go from 6:25 to 7:05, let's just find out the time to go from 6:25 to 7. That will obviously be 35 minutes. And then we have 7 to 7:05. 7 to 7:05 is obviously just 5 minutes. So that becomes a total of 40 minutes. Now, since we want to give the time in kilometers per hours, we need to turn 40 minutes into hours. So just divide this by 60 and this becomes 2 upon 3 hours. So that's our time. This is the distance. Let's just divide the distance by the time. So average speed is equal to 24 divided by 2 upon 3. This becomes 24 multiplied by 3 upon 2. So this becomes 36. 36 kilometer per hour is our speed. Now next we have a simple simultaneous equations question. They've said that there are red pens, blue pens, and black pens in a box. There are X number of red pens. They're saying that the number of blue pens that we have is 5 more than the number of red pens. If the number of red pens is X and the number of blue pens is 5 more, then that means that X plus 5 would be the number of blue pens. Because they're saying there are 5 more, right? So X plus 5. The number of black pens is 2 times the number of blue pens. So they're saying that the number of black pens is equal to 2 times the number of blue pens. They didn't say red pens, they said blue pens, right? So 2 times the number of blue pens. So 2 multiplied by X plus 5. This becomes 2x plus 10. Now they're saying write an expression in terms of x for the total number of pens in the box. The total number basically means the sum of all of these values. So let's just add up all of these values. X plus 5 plus 2x plus 10. This becomes 4x plus 15. That is the number of pens that we have in sum in the whole box. The next question is that they've said the total number of pens in the box is 27. So they've told us the value of the total number of pens. And they're asking us to find the number of red pens, which is just x. If we solve for x, we can find the number of red pens. So 4x plus 15 is equal to 27. This is equal to 4x is equals to 12. So x is thus equal to 3. So 3 red pens exist in the box. Let's move on now. The next question is one of bearings. So the thing with bearings is that, wait, let me just check the stream. Yep. So now they've told us to measure the bearing on this, right? On the scale drawing. So the simple way to measure bearings is to bring your protractor along. You have B, C, north, and they're saying measure the bearing of C from B. C from B means that it must be measured from B, and we need to move clockwise from B. Right, so it goes clockwise like this until we meet the line that joins C. So we need to measure this angle. We'll just put our protractor on this line and find the angle. The next thing is that this is the scale drawing that we need to complete. Now this is pretty easy. We can just make arcs of 250 meters and 300 meters depending on the scale. Just convert that to centimeters and make the arcs. Let's move on from this. Now the next question that we're given is that we need to write each number to one significant figure and estimate the value of this expression. So one significant figure means after one digit we need to basically round it off up or down depending on the digit. 5.32 plus 3.97 upon root 878. Now 5.32, one significant figure is 5 over here, and obviously it won't be rounded up because 3 is less than 5, so it becomes 5. And then with 3.97, what we have is that 3.97 can be rounded up because 9 is greater than 5, so it becomes 4. And this is root 900 because 8, and then we have 7 here, 7 brings 1, and then it becomes 900. So this basically becomes 9 upon root 900, which is equal to 30, and this is thus equal to 3 3 is a 9 and 3 10 is a 30, 0.3. Now let's move on. They've given us basic expression that we need to evaluate. A is equals to 5b plus 7, and we need to find the value of a when b is equals to minus 2. So this simple case of just inserting the value of b into a. So 5 multiplied by minus 2 plus 7. So a is equal to minus 10 plus 7. A is equals to minus 3. And that is our answer. Now the next thing that we have is that C is equals to 4D minus 9. And we need to reevaluate this expression in order to make D the subject. So in order to make D the subject, let's just add 9 on both sides. It becomes C plus 9 is equals to 4D. In order to solve for D, let's divide by 4 on both sides. We get C plus 9 upon 4. That is the expression. Let's move on. Okay, fine. So, we're given a number of phone calls a person receives each day for 20 days. Now they're saying the results are shown on in the table. So we see that the number of calls that he received from 0 to 5 is 9, 6 to 10 is 5, and so on. 11 to 15 is 4, and 16 or more is 2. So in order to find the frequency of Kamal receiving 0 to 5 phone calls at work, we'll basically take the number that we have for 0 to 5 and then put it upon the total number. So he receives 9 calls and then we need to divide that by the total number, which is just 14, 18 and 20. So 9 upon 20 would be our answer. We can just simplify this if we want to, but I think we should leave this in this form. Let me just take a water break. The next question we have is that Kamal works for 160 days. Find the number of these days Kamal would expect to receive 11 or more phone calls at work. Now this might seem like a confusing question, but it isn't one. The thing that we have to do is just we take the relative frequency of him receiving 11 or more calls per one day and multiply it by 160 days. So what we do first is first find the relative frequency of receiving 11 or more phone calls. Now they said 11 or more, they didn't say 11 or 15. So 4 plus 2, because that is the entire frequency of 11 and more. So 4 plus 2 upon the total number, which is 20, multiplied by 160. This becomes 6 upon 20 multiplied by 160. This becomes 48. So he would receive 11 or more phone calls at work for 48 days. The next question that we have is that we need to write 42 million in standard form. So 42, and then we have 6 zeros over here. So what we do is basically let's take the decimal, move it back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now why 7? Because we need to make it all the way so that it becomes between 1 and 10. So that the value of the number that we are multiplying by powers of 10 becomes between 1 and 10. So we have 4.2 multiplied by 10, and what will be the power of 10? The power of 10 will be the number of digits that we move backwards. So we move back 7 times, so it will be to the power of 7. So let's move on now. The next question that we're given is that we're given a simple addition sum and we need to evaluate it in standard form. It's 1.3 times 10 to the power minus 4 plus 7.4 times 10 to the power minus 3. So the simpler way to do this is that we can basically make the powers of 10 the same, and then we can bring that out in common and then basically subtract or add. So I think the easier way is that we can just do 13 multiplied by 10 to the power, actually wait, 1.3 times 10 to the power minus 4, and we can make this 74 times 10 to the power minus 4. Because we move this one further, we need to bring it backwards once again, right? So there will be more power required to bring it back to its original position. So we make it 10 to the power minus 4. Now let's take 10 to the power minus 4 common. It becomes 1.3 plus 74. And this becomes 10 to the power minus 4, 75.3. Now, 75.3 multiplying by 10 to the power minus 4 is in a standard form. So let's bring this decimal back once. It becomes 7.53 multiplied by 10 to the power of minus 3. The next question we have is one of similarity. Let's just see. Okay, so they're asking us to calculate BD. In order to find BD, we first need to find the sides that it correlates to. If they're saying ABC is corresponding to CBD, then that means that AB corresponds to CB, BC corresponds to BD, and AC corresponds to CD. See, AB, CB, BC, BD, and so on. So, we're given AB and AC and BC. So, let's see what we can make with that. So, AB corresponds, AB upon CB is equals to BC upon BD is equals to AC upon CD. Now these are all the similarities that we found out from the notations, and we're given AB, we're given AC, and we're given BC. So if we're given all of these values, let's see what we can actually find out, and we need to find BD. So using these values, The next question that we have is that we have a region R and it's defined by a certain number of inequalities that we need to basically label and find out. So if we're making a rough graph, I can show you what it looks like over here. So region R is defined by these inequalities: y is greater than or equal to 2x, x plus y is less than or equal to 4, and x is greater than or equal to 0. Well, the line of x is greater than or equal to 0 first needs to be plotted at x is equal to 0, which is basically the y-axis. So this would be our line. The next thing we have is x plus y is less than or equal to 4, which is x plus y equals to 4. So that would be a line that goes certain way like this. So this would be another line. And y is equal to 2x. So that would be somewhat like this. So now we have all of these lines that are plotted: y is equal to 2x, y is equal to minus x plus 4, which is equal to 0. Well, x is greater than or equal to 0 would mean everything to this side of this line. X plus y is less than or equal to 4 would mean everything to the bottom of this line, and y is greater than or equal to 2x would mean everything to the top of this line. So this is the region that is being selected when we shade all of those. The next we have is a circle theorems question. They're asking us to find the value of x. Now, the value of x, we can see that we have this whole quadrilateral thingy, but the more important thing that we have to notice here is that first we have an isosceles triangle over here, right? It has one angle marked already, so this angle will also be 20 degrees. Another thing that we can notice is that one other angle of the cyclic quadrilateral is given to us. This is 120 degrees. And in a cyclic quadrilateral, this angle would just be 180 minus of this angle. So when we minus 180 from 120, we get 60. The entirety of this angle would be 60. If this is 60 and we need to find this part of this angle and we already know that this is 20, then we can just subtract these. 60 minus 20 is equal to 40 degrees. So angle x equals to 40. Next thing we are asked to find is the value of y. Well, the value of y can be found pretty simply if you realize that these two, well, this arc, the one arc being created by these lines is the same as this arc that is being created by these lines. So two arcs that are subtended, two lines that's basically subtend the same arc, and one is at the center and one is the circumference, means that this angle at the center will be double that at the circumference, right? So y is basically equal to 2 of this angle. So first let's find this angle, right? So this angle can be found as this is a triangle, so it becomes 180 minus 40, which is the sum of 20 and 20. This becomes 140. So the angle at the center is 140. In order to find y, we just half that, so it becomes 70 degrees. The next question we're given is that 18a, we need to find 125 to the power of minus 1 upon 3. So let's just write this in radical form in order to help us out a bit more. 1 upon 3, first of all, minus power means that we basically take a reciprocal of it. It becomes 125 to the power of 1 upon 3. Now 1 upon 3 can be evaluated in radical form by basically taking the denominator and moving it over, so it becomes 1 upon root 125 cube. So cube root of 125 is obviously just 5, so it becomes 1 upon 5. The next thing that we're asked to simplify is this fraction. So let's do that. It becomes a cube upon 4a with the power of 3 upon 2. So first let's just distribute this power, so it becomes a cube multiplied by 3 upon 2 upon 4 with the power of 3 upon 2 and a with the power of 3 upon 2. Well, the first thing that we notice here is that we can just multiply this, so it becomes 9 upon 2 upon 4. Now 4 can be written as 2 square multiplied by 3 upon 2. So the power remains intact. 2 and 2 cancel out, so it becomes 2 cube and this becomes 8. So 8a to the power of 3 upon 2. Now since we have two bases that have the same base but different powers, you can just subtract these. So 9 upon 2 minus 3 upon 2 upon 8. This becomes 9 minus 2, which is basically equal to 6, and 6 upon 2. 6 upon 2 is 3, so it becomes a cube upon 8. The next thing that we're being asked is that 19, the mass of a bag of almonds is 125 grams connected to the nearest gram. Find the lower bound. If it's to the nearest gram, then that means that the accuracy of this is equal to 1 gram. If the accuracy is 1 gram, then that means that the error we will be having is 0.5 grams. Because accuracy ka half is always error. So if we have the error and we have the original value, we need to find the lower bound. So we basically just subtract the error from the original value. So it becomes 124.5. The next thing that we're being asked is in order to find the mass of a large box, which is equal to 500 grams to the nearest 10 grams and 250 grams, which is a small box's mass, to the nearest to the 10 grams. They're asking us to calculate the upper bound of the difference between a mass of a large box and a mass of a small box. The upper bound of the difference always means that this value must be upper and this value must be lower. The greater this value becomes, the lower then this value becomes, the greater that I'm trying to say that the greater that this value becomes and the lower that this value becomes, the greater the output will be. So first, let's find the upper bound of the mass of the larger one. So if the accuracy is 10, then that means that the error is 5, so it becomes 505. And the lower bound becomes 250 minus 5, so that's 245. So let's subtract these in order to find out the upper bound of the difference between them. 505 minus 245 is equal to 260. So the upper bound of the difference between them is 260 grams. Now they've given us some functions. They've given us a function that f of x is equal to 2 minus 4x upon 5. And they're asking us to find f inverse of x. In order to find f inverse of x, what we do, basically we just replace this with y and we solve for x. So this becomes 5y plus 4 minus 2 is equal to minus 4x. And now we can just divide both sides by minus 4 and we get 5y minus 2 upon 4 multiplied by minus. So we can just evaluate this to become 2 minus 5y upon 4. Now in order to make this f inverse of x, we need to basically write this as f inverse of x is equal to 2 minus 5x upon 4. This is replacing the y with x. The next question that we've been asked is to simplify f of x minus f of 2 of x, 2x. So what that basically means is that it's not complicated. We just need to insert f of x in one value, and in the other f of x we need to insert the value of 2x. So let's just evaluate this. F of x is 2 minus 4x upon 5, while f of 2x basically means that instead of writing x over here, we just replace this by 2x. So let's do that. It becomes minus 2 minus 4 and then 2x upon 5. So let's just evaluate this. It becomes 2 minus 4x upon 5 minus 2. This becomes minus 8x, so it becomes plus 8x upon 5. Now we can evaluate this as 2 minus 4x minus 2. 2 and 2 cancel out. Minus 4x plus 8x is 4x upon 5. The next question is a histogram one. One thing that we have to notice here is that, so I can't draw the histogram. The important thing is that you need to calculate the frequency densities of all of these, because we can notice that the class widths are not even to each other. 100 to 120, 120 to 140 are even, but then there comes 140 to 150, and the gap here turns from 20 to 10. That means that the class widths are not even, so we need to make a graph with frequency density. The next question, we're being shown a reciprocal graph over here. Reciprocal graph is y is equal to 1 upon x plus x upon 2 in this case. They're asking us to draw a tangent to estimate the gradient of the curve when x is equal to 2. So what we'll do is that we'll draw a tangent when x is equal to 2 and find the line's gradient, basically the tangent's gradient, and that will be the gradient of the curve when x is equal to 2. Now they're saying to draw a suitable line on the grid and find the solutions 1 upon x minus 5x upon 2 plus 1 is equal to 0. Now, since this is not equal to the original equation, the easiest thing to do in these sort of cases is basically find how we can manipulate this in order to change this into the original equation. So, now let's just make this into the original equation. 1 upon x is minus 5x upon 2. How can we change this in order to make the original equation? The first thing that we have to notice is that there is an additional 1 here. Let's just move that to the other side. The next thing that we can change here is 1 upon x minus 5 minus 6x upon 2 plus x upon 2 is equal to minus 1. So if we evaluate this, it will become minus 5x upon 2, but we have the x upon 2 that we wanted. So it becomes 1 upon x plus x upon 2 is equal to 6x upon 2 minus 1. So it becomes 1 upon x plus x upon 2 is equal to 3x minus 1. So we got our original equation and we have an additional equation too. So if we basically draw the line y is equal to 3x minus 1, and then we can find the intersection of these two graphs, then we will find the solution to this one. The next question is a matrices one, so I'm skipping that for now. And now this question that we have, which I suppose is the last question. Yeah, so let's solve this. We have a 24. This question, we need to solve for the value of x, and they've given us fractions that are in terms of x. So in order to bring these to a common denominator, what we'll do is basically multiply both of them with the denominators, opposing denominators. So it becomes x times x minus 3 minus 5x minus 1 upon x minus 1 times x minus 3. We'll just multiply by with the denominator. It becomes x minus 1, x minus 3. Let's evaluate these. This becomes x square minus 3x minus 5x plus 5 is equals to x square minus x minus 3x plus 1 plus 3. So x square minus 8x plus 5 is equals to x square minus 4x plus 3. X square and x square cancel on both sides, so it becomes minus 8x plus 4x minus 4x on this side, and plus and 3 over here becomes minus 2, 3 minus 5, and x is equals to 0.5. So that's that, and I hope you enjoyed the stream, and next time I'm trying to be a bit more cohesive with this. And yeah, that's it for this one. Hope you liked it. Comment down if you think there are some improvements that should be made. Goodbye.